Okay, the point of this video is to introduce the course, the Mathematical Computation course, and to go through a couple of the things that we're going to be asking you to do as far as turning in and different things from the course's perspective. Okay, so the first thing that we'll do is we'll check out the course website. So if I clicked on that, we would eventually get to to this website. Hopefully everyone's got an email from me and has had a chance to go through or at least peruse the website. So let's just talk about what it looks like right now. So this just talks about the course description, and then it goes through and then gives you lessons by the week, right? So if you go through this particular lesson one, you can see if you clicked on this, then what would come up is the video that we expect you to watch before you start doing anything with this particular lesson. So for example, it comes up, and then you click on the video and you start watching it. And then from there, what happens, or what we've done is we've taken each lesson and broke it down into modules. It could be 2, 3 modules, and there's going to be a link for instance, this video is on this link, although you don't see it live right now. There's a book reading that goes along with this module. What I'm trying to do is break this thing down into 10-minute increments so that there's not one big giant 60-minute sort of preparation for class, but maybe 10-minute little blocks that you guys, I'm sorry, 10 to 15-minute little blocks that you guys can go to and hit. The readings are intended not to be that long. So for one small reading, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and then a Jupyter notebook that goes along with it, and a quiz to make sure that you're sort of catching on to all the information that's been put out. So that's the idea. And if you clicked on the Jupyter notebook right now, this is what would come up. It would be basically something like this. But what you're going to do if you wanted to look at it on the internet is you'd look at it from Google Collaboratory, and then this piece would pop up. The problem is you wouldn't get the picture, right? So there's pictures that are involved in this thing, and so a better way is to hit the download button. So there's a download button over here for these Jupyter notebooks. You download them, put them in whatever folder that you'd like to put them in, and then open them up the other way. And so I'll show you guys later on how to open them up when I say the other way, just basically using a Jupyter notebook from your computer instead of using it on the internet. And so you're going to have 3 Jupyter notebooks. In the past, I've had it as one big giant notebook, but I have been told that it's better to modularize these lessons for you guys. And I've taken an online class, and I saw the benefits to it. And so when you're done with this sort of module here, the last thing you'll do is you'll click on the quiz, and you'll come in and put in your last name, your section number, and yes, it's going to tell you that this is required. And then you'll fill out. So for example, it's asking you a couple of questions that you should have picked up from the Jupyter notebook or in the reading. Sometimes it'll tell you where the question comes from. And then these are pretty easy ones. Have you opened Anaconda? Have you opened Spider? The Anaconda distribution, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Okay, so I want to leave the page because I didn't record anything, and then so that's the idea. So you've done this. It takes you 15 to 20 minutes. I'm sorry, 10 to 20 minutes to do one module, and then you can go to the next one, and then you go to the next one, and bam, you're prepared for lesson 1. And that's what you do before you come to lesson 1. Okay, and then so that's just the course description and all of the information that's associated with that. Then you have course announcements. And then inside course announcements, anything sort of new that we're going to put out for any particular day, and they'll be stacked up at the top. So the new announcements will come up at the top, and this little initial email that I sent you guys out already will be pushed down. If you pull up the class calendar, you will see the one from fall 2019. They will, by the time you click on this, there will be a fall 2020, and then all of the classes will be according to this particular semester. If you click on the Jupyter, you'll see the Jupyter notebooks, and right now there's only 3 of them in there, but eventually all of them will be populated, and you'll be able to click on them as well. But you can also get to these from the place that we looked at before. There's going to be admin files in here, and so all the admin files you'll see. There's Anaconda instructions again. More of sort of the same, and we'll show you kind of how to do that already. There's an introduction sort of form, Google form that I'll have you guys all fill out, but that all will be in the email. And then there will be like the course guide will be here and so on and so forth. But I haven't produced the course guide as of now, or I'm not finished with it, I should say. So it will appear in the admin files along with the course director memo. And then if there's any data files, and right now these are just data files that we used last year. As data files get updated or change, I will put them in this little area in sort of data files so that you can grab many CSV files, a lot of zip files, .dat files. There should be some text files in here as well. I mean, we're going to be able to, hopefully by the end of this course, you'll be able to suck in any of these files into Python and use them however you would like to. And then the homework tab. So what the homework does, it allows us to let you know how many points are going to be due each Friday. And so I believe there's 16 weeks, maybe 17 or so. We might have to add on to this. But what you'll see in this particular tab is what the points come in, and we'll talk about those here in a second. And then the reading list, you'll see the books. So it's a free book, the Introduction to Statistical Learning. You can go on there and grab that sucker. The Langtangen book is the one that we use for the course. It's written in Python 2, but we'll just add parentheses to the print statement, so it'll make it a Python 3. So all the things that are in there, as long as you put parentheses on your print statements, everything in there should work. And then Vanderplas book is the data science. That's how we'll do the NumPy, the pandas, and the different modules that we're going to use in the data science world. And then if we decide to do the simulation using the Tank simulation, we'll come up to that. And then you can see the introduction to computer science, the MIT stuff. And then there's an evolutionary strategy sort of thing that you can click on. So anyway, this is the reading list. And I think there's some other useful links on here. Yeah, so you guys can go on there and do things at your will, whatever you decide to look at. Okay, so let's go back to OneNote to validate where we're at. So we've done the course introduction. So so if you go to the place on the course website where it says download Anaconda, so let's go back to that. So if you go back to here, class announcements, and then come down, and it should be also in the email that I sent out. If you click on the download Anaconda, you'll come to this page, and then there's a little download button, and it's your data science toolkit. So you can click on the data or download, and you'll come down to here, and I believe everybody should be in this world right here. So if you clicked on that, if you hit save file, this file will be saved, and it's right up here if you're in Firefox. If you're not, just figure out how to find your downloads. I don't necessarily need this one because I had this one already. That's probably why it won't let me. Let's see. Would you like to? Oh, yeah, I can save it if I wanted to. Yeah, so I'm not particularly interested, but save it and then run it, and then do all the things that it asks you to do. Let it do its normal installation. There's not anything special that we want it to do. But once you've done that, what you'll see is in your start folder. So once you're done with the Anaconda, what you'll see in your start folder is, let's see if I can share that. Share to the screen too. So the entire screen here. So what you'll see in your start folder should be something like this Anaconda 64-bit business. So what we'll do, you won't see this R language one. You'll have to do something special if you want to do that one. But you should see this Jupyter Notebook Anaconda 3. And if you clicked on that, that's what I meant earlier by the regular way of doing business, right? So hopefully you guys see this page come up. And then I've got this place so I saved this. So I found where I would like my Jupyter Notebook to start. And I just saved it on the tab here, and then I can just very quickly get to all of the different places, right? So now I can open up those Jupyter Notebooks that we have on there, right? And so now you see the picture, right? So before, when we did it in Google Colab, maybe you didn't see this picture here, but now once you do it the regular way, like I call it, then that's it. So I'm expecting you guys to sort of read through this thing and see that this course is not necessarily about Python, but it's more about how to think about to solve computational problems. So that's basically what it says in here. We're going to cover how to write scripts. We're going to cover how to program. We think that readability is the most important thing right now in your sort of place where you're at, more so than efficiency. If you get a huge amount of data and you get really good at programming, then you can worry a lot about efficiency. But right now, I want you to concentrate on can someone else look at your code and read it? And there's this other stuff called the Python Enhancement Project. I think it is what it's called. PEP. PEP 8 is what it's called, and there's a link to it at some point in these Jupyter notebooks, and it'll take you to a place where it talks about naming conventions and whatnot. So I will try my best to use the standard naming conventions that are in that PEP 8, which is a thing that you guys can go ahead and read. The Anaconda download, again, there's another link to it, and I probably overdid that. And then CoCalc is how we're going to turn all our stuff in. So on a weekly basis, I'm going to ask you to turn in the things that you've programmed throughout the week, because the only way to get good at programming is to program, and that's probably that's, I'm sure it's somewhere in here, but the 4 blocks: fundamentals of programming, intro to data science, object-oriented programming, and Monte Carlo sort of stochastic process here. And then we'll cover optimization, simulation, machine learning at the very end of the course. So those are the 4 blocks that we'll cover inside the course. And CoCalc is how we're going to, on a weekly basis, turn in either a suggested problem, a Jupyter Notebook problem. So I don't see one in here. Maybe we'll get out and pull up another. Let's look at Module 2. Yes, so Module 2 is just, hey, writing your first script. And it's just, hey, here's an exercise. So anytime you see this exercise in red here, that means that in that Jupyter Notebook, I'm asking you to do something. So the way that you would do this is you just add a little line here and go, okay, well, you can just program it right in here. So if I were doing this one, I would say, I don't know, length is equal to 640, maybe inches is equal to, what is it, length times 100, right, because it's 640 meters. So I'm going to multiply that by 100 to get it to centimeters, right, because I'm trying to convert from unit 2 to back over to unit 1 to get it in inches. And then I got to divide by 2.54. Right, so that might be my inches, and then maybe feet is equal to inches. So now that I have it in inches, I can just use that divided by 12, however many inches that you have. And then yards, you can simply use your feet, because we know that that's feet divided by 3. And then miles is equal to the number of yards that you have divided by 1760. And then maybe we're going to do a print statement. So print, and then so later on in this thing, it talks about F strings, but you don't necessarily need to know how to do that now. So let's just do length, comma. So it's a comma in here, so a little bit different than R, but that's fine. Inches, feet, what is it? Yards and miles. And so it looks like 640 matches up with what your length is. 25,194. Yeah, 25,194 should be the number of inches. 22,099, 699, and 0.397 miles. Okay, so that's an example of what you would do. So in order to turn this in, we just copy that piece of code and put it into whatever our turn-in file is going to be. But you can add more, you can experiment with it, you can do different things. Okay, so that's the Jupyter Notebook, so we'll stop sharing that. go back over to our OneNote. All right, so course guide. Matter of fact, let me just share screen number 2, and then I'll bring up the course guide and bring it over. All right, so here's what our course guide looks like. It talks about all of the goals for each particular block, and you can see all the assignments that are going to be given throughout the whole entire time, at least for the suggested problems. And then inside each one of these lessons is a read this, do the Jupyter Notebook, here's your homework problems, and here are our learning objectives for that particular day. And then lesson 2, so on and so forth, same kind of deal. And this instruction guide, or this course guide, will help you sort of make your way through the course. This should go according to what the website is doing as well. So you should be able to pull this up and click on the courseware here, and it should be the same video that's going to be on the website. So and Jupyter Notebooks, we just did one of those. Board problems. So what is a first a suggested problem. So let's see what a suggested problem looks like. So here down low is from the book. You might see this in the book, right? So this might be a exercise that you're trying to get 2 points out of. So it's Friday, and I'm trying to get as many points as I can. And I looked in the book, and this is one of the suggested problems. So this is a suggested problem from the book for lesson 1. And you might think, hey, this is a pretty decent problem. I think I know how to do this. I'm gonna submit this problem for my weekly turn-in, my weekly exercise turn-in. Okay, so if that's the case, then I would, and I'm gonna put this is Anaconda, or this is the spider, right? So this is the IDE, the Integrated Development Environment for the Anaconda download. So once you've done Anaconda, this is another thing that comes up if you go to Anaconda and you look for spider. Spider just stands for the Scientific Python Integrated Development Environment. So that's all it stands for. And so this question is pretty easy, right? Because all it wants us to do, so almost all books and programming languages start with a very simple program. They want you to print hello world. So we can do that pretty easily. So print hello world. That is true what they said many of our, so if you pressed F9, or if you hit run, you have F5 will run the entire script here. If you want to highlight one piece, so run the selected or current line, you can highlight it and press F9. Or if you're on that line and you press F9, it'll just take you down to the next one, right? So if you want to run it a whole bunch of times, highlight it and just keep pressing F9, and you can see the hello world keeps popping up over there. So that's an example of doing a suggested problem. And so now if it's time for me to submit this sucker, no, one last thing before we get there, right? So that we just did the 2 points that's going to be involved in getting the points for that particular exercise. It's pretty easy. So that's a suggested problem. The Jupyter Notebook, the one that we just did, was an example of getting 3 points. So we could get 3 points for that simple code that we typed in a few seconds ago about converting meters to various different lengths. And then board problems. So now what I want to talk about is maybe a board problem. So this is going to be our first board problem that we have for the entire semester. And all it says is, in football, there's this statistic and it tells you how to calculate, right? So it's sort of giving you a recipe for starting with, well, you got to figure out what you're starting with, right? So if you start reading this thing and going through it, you say, okay, completions per tenth. Well, what does that mean? What is that implying? What things do we need? Well, I need completions. So I'm going to need completions. I'm going to need attempts. What else am I going to need? Yards. So we're going to need yards. We're going to need touchdowns. And all of this is by, per attempt. But I only need attempts once. An attempt For those that don't know football, an attempt for a quarterback, right? So that's what we're talking about when we're saying passer rating. This is for a quarterback, the person that gets the ball when they say hike, basically. The center hikes it to the quarterback, and he's the one that's going to, and when they're throwing the ball, when he throws it, it's an attempt. And then when the wide receiver or the person he's throwing it to, could be a running back or a tight end or whatever, catches it, it's called a completion. And the number of yards that they gain is called that's the number of yards. And then if they get into the end zone by way of forward pass, then that's a touchdown that's attributed to the quarterback, right? So these are the things, these are the statistics. So these are some of the statistics that are kept on a quarterback. And then the next one is intercept. So we need interceptions. So this part that I'm writing down over here on the side is not, no one told you that you needed this information, but by reading the problem that you're going to have to figure out what those things are. So these are what we call input. And this guy is too, right? So these are the inputs into my sort of algorithm that we're going to. So it says this 5-step algorithm here. But you can't do anything unless you have this input, right? So we wouldn't be able to produce. So what are we going to produce? We're going to produce the passer rating. So that will be my output, passer rating. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, I believe, is all we need. And then all we're going to do in the end is just sum the c variable, y variable, t, I, and then divide by 6, and then multiply by 100, and then bam, we got what we're looking for. And then in the board problem itself, it gives you a link to go and just check to make sure, right? So that's another part when you're writing code, is you would like to have something that would validate what you've done, because you could make some little small error and it not turn out to be correct. So if that were the case, then it might look something like this. So I've already solved it, so you guys don't have to sit here and watch me. So completions, attempts, yards, touchdowns, interceptions. So those were the things that we talked about would be inputs, and we haven't talked about functions yet. So that's all. That's sort of the input into my algorithm. And my algorithm, I used an _C because I didn't want to mess up a capital C. Like if I knew I'm the only one that's going to use this _C, and by the PEP 8 that we talked about earlier, that style guide, if you're going to be the only one to use that variable, it's good to use an underscore, right? So this is not going to be used anywhere else except for in my little bit of code here. And then I calculate the passer rating by doing exactly what it told me to do, and then I pass it out. Now, if I'm turning this in, I'm going to put a start and a stop block, and then F9, and then the number that comes out is the number that comes out, right? So that's what I'm trying to produce. And then what you want to do is go to that link. Let's see, where was that link? Well, I won't worry about it now, but what you want to do is you want to go to this link down here, and I didn't make it active, but you go to that link and just look and find, put in different completion yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and attempts in order to see if your passer rating little calculation actually does what it says it's going to do. And mine did. Okay, that's all I got for this lesson. Actually, no, I tell you what. Let me finish this thing up by just using those 3 things and showing you what a turn-in would look like. So let's do that. Let me show you. So suppose this were my week 1 programming exercise turn-in. So this is Friday and it's 8 o'clock at night, and I'm trying to get this thing done so I don't have to worry about it anymore. I've done one problem from the suggested problem. So this would be suggested problem 1- and I forgot what number it was, so we'll come back up. 1-2. So that would be 1-2. So that's my number 1. And my second one would be Jupiter 1-1, right? Because that's lesson 1, number 1. And then my last one would be board problem, lesson 1, number 1, right? So those are my 3 problems that I did. And then what I would do is I'd come down here, and I'm going to go ahead and take out everything that I didn't do. So my suggested problem would be 1-2. And then after 1-2, I'm going to put my sample code in, hello world. Control C. I'm going to come over here and put it in. So that would be my hello world. And then I've only done once. I'm only getting 2 points for my suggested problems. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put in, let's see here, 1-1 was that one problem that we did already. And that would be this one. Control C. And so if I ran this, it does exactly what we think it should do, right? And so then my board problem would look like, and we can call this number 1 because we labeled it up there. This was number 2. Let me put a little space in there, and this would be number 3. And it's good to have some sort of convention, right? So if I'm doing 3 hashtags or number signs, then you want to do 3 to introduce, right? So the 1-1, so lesson 1-1 is what I'm going to turn in. And now I got to find the code for that, which I believe is also in here. Control C. And I'm going to go back and put it into my submission. And now, so what you would want to do is put all your suggested problems together. So if I was going to do another suggested problem, it would probably be labeled number 2, and it'd be 1 dash, maybe 1-3, and then maybe this one would be number 3, or and so on and so forth. But if this were my particular, if this is what I was going to turn in for my submission, this is what it would look like, right? And you don't need this anymore. I mean, this is just to explain it to people. So I would put any documentation. So any documentation needed, I would say none received or none. And then so this number 1 goes with this number 1, which is from the suggested problems. This number 2 is the Jupyter Notebook problems, and so that's where that would come from. So it's 1-1, but it's number 2 because it goes with that number 2. And then number 3 would be this first board problem on lesson 1 board sheet, and so that's where that would come from. And then this would be it. And then how many points would I get from this? Because they all work, I would get 2, plus 3 is 5, plus 5 is 10. So this would be 10 and then you would just take your number of points that you get and divide it by the total number of points that came from our, let's see, where's homework? The total number of points that's on this website. So maybe there's 100 points, and so maybe you're only getting 10% for that week. And then if you're happy with that, then you drive on, and that's what you turn in. Okay, I think that's all we got for this particular lesson. I apologize. This one might be a little long, but that's okay. Maybe they'll be, or they will. I am going to aim for them to be between 10 to 15 minutes in the future.